Welcome to Film and Page. I'm Dominic. So by now everyone's heard the news that Sean Connery passed away over the weekend at the age of 90 years old, I do believe. And Sean Connery is one of those actors that I've just always known about. I can't remember a time before Sean Connery or when I didn't know about Sean Connery. And of course, one of the very first roles I ever seen him in was him playing James Bond. When I was growing up on TV, they reran a lot of the James Bond movies. And right till this day, Sean Connery has always been my favorite Bond. Hands down, he's the quintessential Bond, and he was just made to play that role. It's his signature role. So if I'd wanted to talk about some of my favorite Sean Connery roles, but James Bond would just win by a complete landslide. So I decided to do a top 5 Sean Connery roles that are not James Bond. So let's get started. Number 5. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, 1989. So this was the last Indiana Jones movie for quite a while, and here Sean Connery played Professor Henry Jones. And we didn't get another one until The Crystal Skull quite some years later. So this was like the final chapter of the series for a long time. And Sean Connery was like larger than life in this role. And what I liked about it, Sean Connery has such a presence. It's like such a dominating presence that he just easily slipped into the role of Indiana Jones' father. What I really liked about the two characters, like the bickering that they had going on in that movie and stuff. And it was a great ending to a great series. So really liked Sean Connery in that role. Number 4. Outland, 1981. Here, Sean Connery plays Marshal William T. O'Neill. Now, this is one of the more obscure ones on this list. I don't know how many people actually know about this movie or how popular this movie is. But I've seen this movie quite a few times over the years, and I own this one on DVD. And what I like about this movie, it's a really gritty sci-fi, but the way it looks and its design, it would fit seamlessly in the Alien universe. Like this could almost be like a side story within that same universe that just doesn't involve a xenomorph. So the whole gist of the film is Sean Connery is assigned to this mining colony on one of the moons of Jupiter, and it's like a mining town in space. So this is like a western in space. And while he's there, there's a lot of incidents that before he even got there, there's a lot of incidents of the workers having psychotic breaks, killing people and then killing themselves. So while he's there, he uncovers this plot where this illegal stimulant that's being given to the workers so they can work these incredibly long shifts. They can do like 12-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts, 7 days a week for like months on end by doing the stimulant. And what that does is it increases productivity, and the mining company they all get production bonuses on top of their regular pay. Now, the side effect is that the workers end up having like psychotic breaks and end up either killing themselves or murdering someone else. So when Sean Connery stumbles upon this, he realizes the whole company's like in on it. And the main leader there, the guy who runs the whole mining town, is in charge of this little operation. He decides that, we got to get rid of Sean Connery. So he turns to his fellow marshals for help, but they're all on the take as well, except for one, but that guy gets murdered. And so he's all alone. So it's like high noon in space. None of the town will help him. Nobody will help him except for one doctor that's on the site there. And so then the company sends 4 or 5 hitmen to kill Sean Connery's character, and so he has to stand off against them all by himself. So a really fantastic science fiction movie that I've seen quite a few times, and if you ever get a chance, check this one out. It is really good. Number 3. Highlander, 1986. Sean Connery plays Ramirez in this movie. Now, this is a movie that first time I seen it, I was really young, back in my childhood, and I just loved this movie when I seen it, Highlander. I remember my friends telling me about it before I seen it, about the Immortals and all that, and we rented it, watched it, and I just loved it, and watched it quite a few times over the years. This is another one I own on DVD, and watch it frequently. And I really like the role of Sean Connery in this as Ramirez. He's like this really flamboyant, over-the-top character that dresses really loudly, and it's just like he plays such a crazy character in this one, and does such a good job being a mentor to Connor McLeod and in the movie and things like that. And this is like one of my all-time favorite movies from my childhood. I was never really a fan of the follow-up sequels, except for the second one. I like the second one; it's a guilty pleasure. But I'm really just a fan of the first movie because it's just a perfect start to finish story, and Sean Connery is really good in this one. I really like it, even though he's supposed to be like a Spanish guy, but he has a Scottish accent. But well, whatever, it somehow it works. But another great movie, and there's probably most people watching this video has probably already seen this movie, but if you haven't, you got to check this one out. This is like a classic. Number 2, Untouchables, 1987. Jim Malone. So this is another movie that I actually own this one on DVD as well. And I've watched this one quite a few times over the years, and this is like one of my favorite mobster movies. And I like it because me and my dad had very different tastes in movies. I loved science fiction. He hated science fiction. He loved westerns, and I didn't really care for westerns. There's the odd one here and there that I liked, but for the most part, I didn't like it. But where we had common ground was mafia movies and mobster movies. We both really like mobster movies. And so this is one movie we actually watched together quite a few times, was The Untouchables with Sean Connery and Kevin Costner. And Jim Malone, he's like this old, beaten down, beat cop, Irish beat cop that, has kind of gone under the radar and has never really been promoted, but he's a really excellent cop. And when Kevin Costner's character, Elliot Ness, meets him on the street, he sees something in him that no one else does, that this guy is filled with a lot of street smarts, where at that point, Elliot Ness is trying to get Al Capone by just going by the book, and it's not working at all. Where Sean Connery's character comes in and says, well, if you want to get him, this is what you got to do. You got to bend the rules. You got to play by the street rules. And so he's just a fantastic character, and he has a really good death scene in this movie too as well. So definitely a movie. If you have not seen this one, you really got to check this one out. It is really good. Number 1, Zardoz, 1974. Here Sean Connery plays the character Zed. Now, this is one that is really out of left field. Now, this isn't my favorite movie that's on this list necessarily. There's other movies that overall I like a lot more than Zardoz. But as far as Sean Connery roles go, this is my favorite one on the list because it is so out of left field and it is so bizarre for him to do. So this is one of his early roles that he took on after he was done with James Bond. And he was just doing anything he came across just to break away from that typecasting of James Bond. And this is about as far from James Bond as you can get. So if you haven't seen this movie, it is a bizarre, dark science fiction movie. And that was a trend in the 1970s. They had a lot of these strange sci-fi movies that came out, and they all had like grim endings. And this one is no exception. So the gist of this film is it is several hundred years in the future from the present day, after civilization has collapsed, and a group of scientists actually figured out a way how to survive the apocalypse by becoming immortal. And their little colony that they have is surrounded by this invisible force field, so they live in this like paradise, and outside the walls everyone else has to live in squalor and misery. And outside, everything is being ran by these gangs called Brutals. And the outside world, the Brutals worship a flying stone head that they think is a god called Zardoz. But Zardoz is actually controlled by one of the immortals from this colony, because they've been alive so long that they actually can't figure out how to deactivate their immortality. And some of them in there kind of have this conspiracy going because they want to die. They've been alive 400 years. Now they're at the point they're longing to die. They want to die because there's nothing left. Now that they have no fear of death, they know they're never going to die. They have no more drive. Like they don't, like their sex drive is even gone. Not even gets explored because there's nothing to drive them. There's nothing driving them because they live infinitely. There's no limit on their lives. So there's nothing pushing that. There's no engine pushing that wagon kind of thing. So they concoct a scheme to genetically engineer one of the Brutals to do the job for them. And that genetically engineered Brutal is Sean Connery. So he's smart enough, intelligent enough to get in on the colony of these immortals, and actually smart enough to figure out the source of their immortality and destroy it. And therefore they can all finally die. And it's a really bizarre science fiction movie, and it's a movie, one of those movies, I like it, but I usually don't recommend it to other people because it is so strange. And I've shown the movie to 2 different friends on separate occasions, and after they were done watching the movie, I've asked them, well, what did you think of that film? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know. And then they just looked at me and said, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I liked it. I don't know if I hated it. It was such a weird movie. And I thought that way the first time I watched it as well. I didn't know what to think of it until I watched it a few more times, and then I just fell in love with it, and then I kind of got what it was all about. And another interesting thing, Charlotte Rampling is also in this movie. She's the actress that's going to be playing Mother Goddess Helen Mohim in the upcoming Dune film by Denis Villeneuve. But she's also in this movie, and she's co-star with Sean Connery. And this is, like I said before, this is about as far away from Bond as you can get, because Sean Connery hardly talks in this movie. Where every other movie, he's basically Sean Connery and he has lots of dialogue. This one, it's a totally different role for him. And that's why it's my favorite role on this list. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and I will see you at the next one. I'd like to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you all in helping this channel grow. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded.